The Red Sox walk it off, but in delayed fashion.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into Locked On Red Sox podcast. Thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Yasi, and what a game. In my opinion, a game to remember. But I am joined by a very special guest in today's episode. His name is Jake Yasi. He's the producer of Baseball is Dead and the Name Redacted Podcast, both with Jared Carrabis. And him and I break down this incredible game on Tuesday night and much, much more. Let's get into my conversation with Jake. We are here with Jake Yasi, who's a producer for Baseball is Dead and the Name Redacted Podcast. So how we doing, Jake? I got to start off, what a game. Like, I feel like that game is going to be remembered even at the end of the season. Doesn't matter how the season turns out.
Yeah, man. First of all, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. Hell of a game. You know, I was telling you we were going to hop on right after the game for this interview, and I was like, please just win so we can have the vibes high on this podcast. But man, they needed a win like that. Like, so many winnable games that I feel like we let go, but a game like that to finally come through in that spot is huge.
I agree, especially everything that like led up to it as well. Like, you know, it started off with a whole Kike getting the drop third strike and making it to first. You know, Cassis walking, which seeing him have that plate presence after, you know, struggling so far this season was really nice to see. And then, you know, McGuire getting that blue game tying hit, and then, you know, the weird double play. Like, couldn't have had a better, like, I guess, lead up to such a weird play and a delayed reaction as well.
Yeah, huge walk by Duran mixed in there too. I mean, that was big. When I saw that ground ball go to third and Cassis got tagged, I'm like, honestly, he should have just laid down and maybe just like delayed time so Ref Snyder could get to first, but you can't obviously fault him in that situation. Right. There's a lot going on right there. But I mean, yeah, after that debacle, to be able to walk it off and not have to go to the 11th was big for sure.
And, you know, even like Sale starting, I mean, I don't know about you. I was really nervous going into this start, especially with how everything has begun and him not really having any command whatsoever. But he really found a way to have pinpoint control throughout this start.
Yeah, and you talked about how much led up to that 10th inning. Like, the Chris Sale start feels like 3 games ago at this point.
Seriously.
The fact that was tonight is crazy. But yeah, I mean, what a big outing by him. Just to give us some confidence to have another solid guy in the rotation is big, and like, we know what he's capable of. So, I mean, 11 Ks through 6, I think it was. That's like first time double-digit strikeouts in 4 years, I think someone said. So, I mean, obviously love to see that out of Chris.
And win 6 innings too. Like, one thing that, you know, was talked about literally 2 days ago is how much the bullpen has been used to start this season. And now we're seeing, you know, Cutter Crawford goes 6 innings, you know, Whitlock goes 7. And who would have thought, you know, Sale would have gone, you know, 6 and only allowed 3 hits.
Yeah, man, if he can continuously do that for the rest of the year, I mean, even if he's just a serviceable starter, I think a lot of people would have taken that. But if he can show that level of vintage Chris Sale, I mean, multiple times throughout this year, where that really changes the whole rotation and the whole team in general.
And especially his command as well, like 67%, you know, 63 strikes over 94 overall pitches. And I feel like the slider was finally working, you know, especially how much it literally looked like a Frisbee. There was times where like it almost hit like a right-handed hitter. And there's multiple times where, you know, different guys looked silly up there, the Twins batters. And I was just happy to see his slider back in command and the rest of his pitches working as well.
Yeah, I mean, that last at bat, or that last batter he faced in the top of the 6th when he went down 3-0 to him, and then you just like saw that look on his eye, and he just came back and fought, and I think he put him away with like a filthy slider at the end of that at bat. But I mean, just seeing that determination in his eyes again and actually executing is awesome.
I couldn't agree more. I saw that and I noticed it, and all it made me think of is like the video of him going like screaming in his glove and like that confidence, like that fire that we've been yearning for from Chris Sale. I hope we get to see that soon.
We need him.
Like we need that energy, and especially I don't know about you, like over these past few days I've been going back and watching 2013 stuff, and just seeing the David Ortiz like speech, and obviously Chris Sale's speech in 2018, that kind of reminds me of that as well. But like just like the leadership that 2013 team had, and their resiliency. I mean, you could see it tonight too. I mean, I felt like when Schreiber came in with 2 outs, I'm sorry, when Schreiber came in, like he ultimately wasn't able to get out of any of that mess, and ultimately, obviously, ended up giving the Twins the lead. But I went from being confident in this game with it tied to it just blowing up in our face again. Once again, and then the Sox being able to be resilient enough to ultimately get the dub.
Yeah, no, just having a guy who has that edge like Chris is just so big because you're obviously looking to different guys on this team for leadership, and maybe some who haven't really stepped up this year so far yet, who you just need to be leaders. And Chris, I mean, he always is going to have that edge, and he's going to be a psychopath in the bullpen in a good way, or in the dugout in a good way. But I mean, when he's not locating, when he's not having good outings, it's obviously doesn't translate as well. So when he's out there and he's shoving and he's got that edge to him, that's just adds a lot of character to this team.
Yeah, I agree. I haven't been able to do this since I got this thing. So like if you're watching on YouTube, I have this Chris Sale like K counter. I just realized this. I haven't been able to do this ever since like I actually like bought this thing. So got to put it to 11. I got this little Chris Sale bobblehead. I put it here for a reason, for like good luck to give him, in my mind, some sort of confidence. Obviously, he doesn't know that it's actually there, but it will be so clutch if he's able to be back on his game. And it's also been nice to see some other Red Sox starters look good as of late. And I hope the more that this rotation gets healthier and healthier, we're able to see different guys come up clutch, and obviously everybody coming back, including Paxton. It's going to be very interesting how everything does materialize. But one thing I was curious about is Jared has like Caleb Ward, Tyler has Garrett Whitlock, but like who's your guy?
I mean, debatable on whether Tyler has Garrett Whitlock. A lot of shitlock references going around. My guy, that's a good question. I mean, Schreiber, obviously tough outing tonight, but he's been sneaky pretty good this year. I haven't really like publicly made a stand, I don't think, on anyone, but I mean, I'll take Chris Sale if he's up for grabs. I think that's probably a pretty good pick. I mean, if he does what he did tonight, the rest of the season, that's going to be a guy that you want on your side. So yeah, I'll take Sale.
I hope so. And obviously another guy too that was so huge tonight, Verdugo. He's just been so clutch throughout this season, an on-base machine. I looked on MLB stats, like 17th right now, ranked in batting average. You can't have anybody better like in that spot to walk it off. And it was just so weird seeing all the guys so ready to like celebrate. I'm like, all right, somebody's literally has to make a call like right now.
Yeah, no, Verdugo just looks different this year, man. It's awesome to see. And like, especially with a lot of guys underperforming at the plate so far, he's just a guy that we needed to step up. And I mean, Cora called him out over the offseason or at the end of last year. And I mean, he's obviously responded. I'm super confident every time he comes up to the plate. Even tonight, when there's 2 outs, guys on second and third, 4-4, you're like, damn, we just blew that opportunity to get an easy sack fly or ball to the right side, get that run in. But I mean, even with 2 outs, I still thought he was going to come through, and he obviously did. So, I mean, big props to Doogie this year. He's really carrying us.
And especially just like the patience that he's shown like at the plate. I've seen him trying much more to just get base hits instead of like trying to go for power. I mean, you see it with 1 home run and 5 RBIs every single time he comes up, but like the batting average up to 348. You can't ask for anything better. Like in that leadoff spot, especially for somebody who's hoping to get an extension probably this offseason.
Yeah, he's like barreling up everything and just driving the ball singles, like not even like dinky singles, like he's still ripping the ball. So I mean, yeah, couldn't ask more out of a leadoff guy right now.
5 for 3 for him today. And then another guy who I actually didn't realize was like hitting the cover off of the baseball, Reese McGuire. 393 so far this season.
Unbelievable. And obviously a huge hit there in the 10th. Like going back to last year, he's just been consistently like above 300 guy, which I don't think a lot of people expected. But I mean, if he's going to keep doing that, I'm down to keep putting him in the lineup.
I hope that you are enjoying my conversation with Jake, but I just want to take a second to talk to you about eBay Motors. So, for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So, the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay's Guarantee Fit, you can be sure that every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know that the part will fit or your money back. Because just like sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions may apply. Also, if you're an everydayer, make sure to tune in tomorrow because I have a very special guest, and Lucy Burge from BetQL coming on the show. So make sure to tune in. Let's get back into my conversation with Jake. Yeah, and one thing that I actually did, like right after he hit that blue single, I tweeted out, I'm actually going to be giving away a Reese McGuire autograph. I have like 25 of them. No joke. I've never really told this story, but like I sent him a fan mail and he actually sent it back because the envelope ended up getting teared. And so he said that like it showed up with like no cards, but like it showed up like with my note. And so he sent back like 2 autographed cards, like with like a really nice note, like explaining everything. I'm like, this guy's a really good guy. And then I like ended up going down to like Bradenton, like for the Pirates spring training, like a few times, like got a ton of his autographs. And him and like Austin Meadows were like the only people, if you sent like cards to, like, I don't know, when they were like wicked big prospects, they would actually sign. So I for some reason, like 25 of them.
That's awesome. I'm not surprised, honestly. He seems like the man. Did you see his post-game interview like 10 minutes ago?
No, I didn't.
He's
I saw Doogie's where he like swore like 5 times.
Yeah, that's the one I meant.
Oh, okay.
Just kept dropping the F-bomb. I feel like that's just like how he talks and he can't even reel it in. So I feel like that comes
and then
across.
Jamai's like, just so you know, we're live. Like,
yeah, like after he did it for like the 5th time, he's like, we're live, by the way. It's like a little late now, but yeah, I just love Doogie. You can tell like that's just who he actually is, and it comes off as super relatable.
Yeah, so I've been doing at the Woo Sox just their Nesson broadcast. So like I get to see like how like the director does it and everything like that. And all I can think is like those people hearing F-bomb after F-bomb after F-bomb, and they're like, oh my God, like why do we have a bleep person like ready? Like it's just because they don't think about it. And Alex Verdugo isn't interviewed like every single night. But like that's all I think about is their reactions. Like, are you kidding me?
I know they got to be freaking out, but I mean, they were letting them fly through. There was definitely maybe the bleep guy had the night off, but they let those slip through for sure.
But like McGuire getting pinch hit for Wong, that was kind of interesting to me. I get it 100%, but like Wong so far, he's had his moments at small points, but like 171 so far, and I was since I've been working for the Woo Sox, seeing Alfaro do his thing at the plate, obviously nowhere close to Wong defensively, but I mean, is he a guy that you look towards like maybe, June if Wong still has, a below 200 or, a low 200 average?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thought there is you're starting Wong because of his arm, and he obviously has shown that he can throw guys out. He's been on a tear of throwing guys out recently. So I guess swapping in Reese there for a bigger moment at the plate makes sort of sense to me. I haven't followed Alfaro too much, but I mean, I'll take your word on it. I could see like
he had 3-run single double today.
Really? Okay.
Won the game today for the Woo Sox.
Yeah, so I mean, to your point, I think if Wong is sub 200 still, and like you said, June, you probably will start looking at Alfaro. But I mean, yeah, that arm behind the plate is just obviously his biggest weapon.
And I've found it interesting, obviously going into the season, everybody's really nervous about, this Wong McGuire sort of platoon. A little bit of the nervous is, you've had Vasquez back there for, multiple years, that security, and like with what McGuire gave you last year, the 400 with when he was with the Red Sox after getting traded over here. I've just been a little bit more confident in what they've given, not only defensively, but just offensively as well. And, I thought it was really interesting all throughout free agency. People are like, why are we looking more at catchers? Like, what is happening with this whole position?
Yeah, obviously Vasquez leaving, the thought immediately was like, damn, we have no catcher. Vasquez has been our consistent guy. He's solid defensively and at the plate for a number of years for us. But no, I mean, like you said, I think Wong and McGuire tandem has been a surprisingly pretty good fit so far. I mean, it's obviously tough night in, night out to decide who's going to start, but I feel like Cora's managed it pretty well. And like in a game like tonight, I think it went perfectly. So, I mean, shout out to those guys for stepping up. And funny enough, as we talk about Vasquez's competence behind the plate, kind of gave us that game tonight multiple times.
Yeah, seriously. It was kind of weird seeing him walk back to the Twins dugout, like losing, because he's like, I'm used to like celebrating with these guys at Fenway.
For sure.
And probably, being back there. I mean, I know he was back there, when he literally had to play for the Astros, or when he was with the Astros and literally had to walk over. But it's just so weird to, see all these different pictures of all these different guys in these different uniforms. I don't know if you feel the same way. I mean, with JD in the Dodgers uniform, like people make all these like photoshops. I'm like, all right, stop.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Xander, Vasquez, JD, it's super Evaldi. Like, I feel like that's the first thing when someone gets traded, the Photoshop comes out and they're just like, it's almost like they want to drive the pain into you even more. They're like, look at him in the new uniform, and it obviously sucks to see. But yeah, Vasquez tonight. I mean, the catcher's interference and then the drop strike 3 to Kike, like that was uncharacteristic of him. But obviously, we'll take it. We'll take the win.
So going back to the Red Sox catchers, I'm curious your thoughts on why you think they're not throwing out runners barely at all. You brought up obviously Wong's been doing it successfully as of late, but like especially against the Orioles, I remember their first series, and then all these other teams as well. Like I think the Orioles like broke a record for the most amount of like steals that they've been able to get successfully in a few amount of games of this series. But I'm just curious your thoughts on, do you think it's like the pitch clock or bigger bases or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, steal success rate is up across the league. I think maybe that first series against the O's was just the Red Sox not fully being ready for it, and they talked about pitchers waiting till 1 second left on the pitch clock, so the Orioles were just timing it up, and really Wong and McGuire had no chance to throw them out anyway. So, I mean, I'm optimistic because obviously the last week or so they've been throwing out a lot more guys and it hasn't been as big of a problem. So I'm hoping it stays that way. But yeah, I think that early thing was just sort of like a fluke, and maybe just a little bit of rust from not fully understanding the new rules or knowing how to best work around them to make that not happen to you.
Another thing that's been really weird to see is how much teams have been bunting on the Red Sox. It seems like, especially against Chris Sale, he tried to do a whole like Jeter thing, or he almost did, and didn't end up throwing it when he got the bunt. But like, I feel like teams are so comfortable bunting against the Red Sox now because they know majority of the time, at least throughout this season, it's been successful.
Yeah, we have not been able to defend the bunt. That was funny when we saw Chris Sale jump up like that. I was like, at first I thought he was going to third, then I thought he was going to second. I'm like, please don't like look 180 jump past this to first. Thankfully he didn't, but yeah, I don't know. Hopefully, I mean, that Nesson cameras actually showed Cora like a lot tonight, and he just kept going like this. I think he was just telling people to be aware of the bunt. So maybe it's something that they're looking at and saying, why are people bunting so much on us? But yeah, interesting to see what happens with that for the next couple of weeks.
And you also brought up Duran earlier in the episode. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on him getting his, in my opinion, last shot to show that he deserves to be on this major league team. And I mean, he not only did very well in his debut, but also in this game as well. 2 hits, and you also brought up that clutch walk. I'm curious, your thoughts on him, especially from what I've seen. He had like a 193 batting average in AAA prior to coming up.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think early impressions are he kind of. I mean, I know he switches around his style at the plate a lot, his routine, but I mean, he kind of is tearing the cover off the ball the last couple games. He had one yesterday that went high off the monster that probably would have been a home run everywhere besides Fenway. So I mean, just with how much of a freak athlete he is, how fast he is, like he's a super fun, exciting guy to watch, and I don't want to like completely close the door on him yet. So I'm down to keep giving him chances. I mean, he's looked solid defensively too. He's obviously a huge threat on the base path. And I mean, we kind of need help right now. So as long as he's still hitting the ball and looks good at the plate, I think we should keep rolling with him.
I agree, and especially the new stance that we saw, and he also had a lot more presence down in AAA, play patience, excuse me, and was able to not only get like 10 walks compared to 11 strikeouts. And that was one thing that I noticed with him is he was just chasing at all these different pitches, but then was still able to have patience to be able to get walks. And there was just like an interesting mix, but a lot less than what we saw of last season. And I really hope that we're able to see not only a better plate approach, but also better fielding, because that's one thing, especially seeing him in center field, it still gives me a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah, I think we'll all still have a little bit of anxiety whenever there's a pop fly to center, at least for a few more games until he proves it. But no, he looks solid out there, so I'm hoping we see more of him.
I hope that you are enjoying my conversation with Jake, but I just want to take a second to talk to you about Ultimate Pro Baseball GM. So this is one of the coolest games I've played, honestly, in a long time. I don't know about you, but I've always wanted to be a general manager of my own professional baseball team, sort of make the different decisions, put my Chaim Bloom or Theo Epstein hat on. And if you've had that same exact feeling, this is the perfect game for you. They not only allow you to hire the right coaches and staff, manage your team finances, but also scout and draft players. And also, the biggest thing that as a GM you never really think about is managing through the difficult personalities and injuries as well. We all know how the Red Sox are trying to overcome injuries right now, so you can figure out how difficult it is to do that, but make sure that you make the right decisions as a GM through this game. And it's been so much fun playing it against other Locked On hosts, and you can actually get involved and play against us right now by not only checking out Pro Baseball GM on the App Store, or also by scanning the QR code. But it's not only challenging, but realistic, as well as free. And you can also play online wherever you go, so you can play on the go as well. So Locked On Red Sox listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. Download the game. Just visit probaseballgm.com or scan the code to look it up on the App Store. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Pro Baseball. Start your dynasty today. Now let's get back into my conversation with Jake. And I don't know if you saw, like with the Woo Sox a few days ago, he ended up missing a ball over his head in center field, and ended up allowing the team to I can't remember, take the lead, I'm pretty sure. And then Manuel Valdez ended up walking it off, and Jared ended up hitting the game tying home run. So like it was just a weird turn of events, and it's obviously cool now to see him get his chance. But Yoshida is one guy you also spoke about recently in the newest Name Redacted episode. And I mean, he went 0 for 5 tonight and has a 167 batting average after this game. I'm curious if what your thoughts are on him. I sort of semi-expected this struggle to begin April and getting acclimated to the MLB pitching, but I'm curious your thoughts on him not being able to really get on base. And another thing you guys brought up as well is him rolling over a ton. That happened tonight too.
Yeah, man, it's been a tough go to start. I don't think anyone's calling him a bust completely yet. It's like you said, it's not super surprising that he's off to a slow start. He has a lot to adjust to in the MLB, but man, it's tough, some of these ABs. And I think his third at bat tonight, in maybe the 5th or 6th inning, he actually poked one to left, and that was like the first time he really just went with a pitch that was away and tried to use that wall, and it ended up getting caught. But Lou Merloni said on the broadcast, like Red Sox got to like what they see out of just that at bat in general. And
Right.
I think if he can start doing that more often and using the monster to his advantage, that's going to be a
Right.
huge piece for him. But man, yeah, these weak grounders to the right side, he's been up in some big spots recently, and you just don't have that feeling when he gets to the plate that he's going to come through yet. So slow start for him, but we'll see what happens.
And I feel like pitchers are starting to notice that as well. Like there's not only, pitching them inside, but also outside as well. And, I feel like even when they pitch him outside, it rolls over as well. And, you saw plenty of plays today where, they threw it to him inside, did the same thing, rolled over to the second baseman. And I agree. If he's able to find a way to do what we saw in spring training, where he was just able to pepper off of the JetBlue, like mini monster,
Yep.
He's really got to do that at Fenway, and especially utilize it for power as well, because he also won the home run derby over in Japan.
Yeah, no, it's definitely surprising seeing this because he just came from such a hot, or I guess month in the WBC, being the MVP of his pool, I think, and having a huge home run in the semifinal game. So you wanted to see him start hot, but I mean, not super surprising. But I hope he just sort of figures out that opposite field game, and I think he'll figure it out if he does that.
And I'm curious your thoughts on the rest of the Twins series as well.
Sorry, you cut for a sec.
Oh shit. Having classic name redacted
Yeah.
issues. But by the way, since I'm gonna keep that in, might as well. It's part of the whole joke.
For
But when that does happen, how is that for you? Like editing the podcast, like do you have to make down notes?
Yeah, I'm always taking notes during the pod. Like sometimes I'll leave it in, like you will, just because it's funny, especially with Tyler. But the thing we use, like sometimes the internet disconnects, but the service we use is recording locally, so it actually doesn't affect the recording. That's why sometimes you'll hear Tyler be like, "Oh, we didn't hear you, Jared," but the listeners heard him.
Right.
But yeah, I usually just have a timer going, and then I like when something happens like that, I just mark down what time it happened, and then I'll go back and edit it later.
Yeah, because that was one thing that like I was always curious about is, I mean, you see you in like the little square, and a lot of podcasts do that where like they show the producer, and I'm always curious, like what do the producers do behind the camera? I'm guessing like time stamping, but is there any time where you have to like research outside of making sure that Pat is staying on top of his Pat's picks?
Yeah. No, it's basically all just writing down like exactly what we're talking about, what time we're talking about it. I'm also ranking like moments during the podcast, what I think were the best moments to use for social clips. We have a bunch of people helping out making clips for social. So after the episode's over, I'll just send them the list of notes and be like, hey, like at like 32 minutes and 30 seconds, there was us talking about Kenley Jansen being dominant this year. And then we'll cut that clip. So it's basically just keeping track of what's happening. And then if there's any connection issues, going back and cleaning that up later.
And also, how excited are you that the podcast has a name now? It's not just Jared Carrabba's pod, and now also that you don't really have to cut out and stay up to cut out Section 10 as much.
Yeah, no, it's definitely refreshing. I know Jared didn't like having his name in the podcast name, and I also didn't like tweeting and posting from that name because I sort of felt like I was like speaking for him, like not actually, but it just was weird because like he would tweet something and then I would tweet with his name again, and it just like kind of didn't really make sense. So officially calling it Name Redacted is definitely cool, and I love the new logo. The graphics team at DraftKings did a great job with it, and we got shirts on sale now too. So
Awesome.
I think the whole rebrand is definitely refreshing for me and for the whole podcast.
Yeah, I remember I saw it like during the meetup right before opening day, and it's also cool to see like how the YouTube whole background for the podcast looks exactly like Fenway with the brick and everything like that. You and I, like, I do editing stuff too. I do Photoshop and everything like that. I would love to be able to figure out how to do that, but yeah, I agree. The whole rebrand looks sick.
Yeah, shout out to our guy Corey on that one. He's just a guy who probably still the best decision I ever made to this day when doing this podcast is reaching out to someone on Reddit. It ended up being Corey because I saw him doing just graphics for fun about stuff that we were talking about on the podcast. And I was like,
Yeah.
hey man, do you want to help us out with graphics? And he was like, sure. And now he does literally everything for us, and he's unbelievable at it. So shout out Corey.
Shout out Corey. And I'm also curious, like for you, I bet there's a lot of people who are listening to this, like trying to figure out if they do editing stuff or are just trying to get their foot in the door in the sports space. I'm curious, like what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned through your journey, like meeting Jared, getting the position, and just also continuing to grow in this profession?
Yeah, man. You got to just find a way to provide value to people, I think, is probably the biggest piece of advice I could give. Like, um, you know, I got really lucky, right time, right place with Jared, with Steve leaving Section 10 back in late 2021. I was already doing editing and music videos for a bunch of other people. And one of the artists I was working for knew Coley. So he connected me with Coley. I knew that they needed a producer, and I had been a fan of the show for a while. So they linked me up, and then I developed a relationship with Jared, and he asked me to come to DraftKings. We took it from there. But that was really lucky, right time, right place. But also, it's just, when you meet someone and you want to start to work for them, you just got to figure out how's the best way to not overwhelm this person with requests or flood them with DMs, but just find a way to provide them value, and then they'll take notice. And that's sort of what happened with me.
I agree, and also being able to make those relationships as well, because being able to have a good working relationship with anybody is the best, but also being able to be connected through those different relationships that you may have is also the best as well. And I feel like throughout this profession or like in industry, everybody kind of knows everybody, and that's the most fun part about it.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. It's been great meeting everybody involved in the Red Sox space. I mean, I met you for the first time at the meet and greet at House of Blues. So yeah, appreciate you coming to that. And I mean,
Absolutely.
it's a really cool community to be a part of. So I definitely would just say that too. Like, if someone reaches out to you, don't hesitate to connect with them. Just chat with them, talk some Red Sox with them. I mean, you never know if they might need your help in the future. You might need their help, or however that relationship might develop. But yeah, just always keep an open mind when talking to everybody.
And that's one thing that I've always appreciated, especially since covering the Red Sox, is being able to make those relationships. Like me, Chris Henrik, and Stephen Brown went to that meetup. Like those two kids I met off of Twitter, and being able to make those relationships through Twitter, especially when you go to Sox games, be able to interact with people who you interact with online. I feel like that's like the best part of the whole community, and then you react to moments like tonight all together.
Yeah, I mean, you just see people's takes on Twitter. You see them reacting to walk off stuff like that, and then to meet them in person and just be able to talk, sort of like how you do on Twitter, but just in real life, is cool. So yeah, it's a fun community to be a part of.
And one person I've yet to meet is Tyler Milliken in person. And
Yeah.
and one thing that I did want to say is, I saw the one of the questions on the tweet that I put out. Why does he hate Tyler so much? And I'm not gonna put any words in your mouth, but what you told to me is Tyler's one of the nicest people that you've ever met. And I'm pretty sure, like, for anybody who would know that, that you said that is would know that everything that you do on the pod is obviously sarcastic.
Yeah, I hope it comes across as sarcastic. I know people, if you listen to it for the first time, you might be like, why are they just dunking on this Tyler kid every episode? But no, man, we have a great relationship. He is one of the nicest dudes I've ever met. It's kind of just like when you have one of your buddies who you make fun of, and it's just like fun to bag on him when you know that he's not taking it seriously, and he can give it right back. So he's a great sport about it. It wouldn't be funny if he wasn't a good sport about it. So he's definitely in on the bit, and it's just funny, and I think everyone finds it funny. So
Yeah, and I agree. It makes it even more funny, and especially everything with Pat too. And I loved the episode where it came back for like 15 minutes.
yeah, Pat is always a good guest or co-host, whatever he decides to be that day. Yeah, he's just a naturally funny dude. So I hope we get him more often during the season. I think if the Red Sox like catch fire, or they're in the playoffs, or they are making a playoff run, you might see more more of baseball Pat pop up. That's just my prediction, but yeah, would love to get him back sometime soon.
And one thing too that you guys did recently, interviewed David Ortiz, and that was right after the opening day game or the meetup. And the one thing that I was really curious to see is how Tyler reacted when he first walked in, because I mean, I would probably do the same as that thing. I know obviously Jared probably met him, and I didn't know if Pete had met him at all. I knew that you met him, but I know when I meet him the first time, I'm gonna be like, holy crap, like you made so many amazing memories for me throughout my childhood.
Yeah, you try to mentally prepare for that moment, but once you see him and you're just like, "Holy shit, that's Big Papi," it's
Right.
kind of everything you thought before just goes out the window. Tyler was late to the interview, which is classic because he was like the first one to actually get to the office, but then couldn't figure out how to get in. So him meeting him was basically Tyler walking into the studio like 3 or 4 minutes into while Pete and Jared were already interviewing him. So he kind of just walked over, sat down in his chair, and then Papi was like, "What's up, man?" So I thought that was pretty funny and on brand for Tyler.
And I also thought it was funny that I mean Pete even said it like after the Papi interviews. Pete asked this question like 3 times. Ortiz never answered it at all.
Yeah, he's just like, "So who's one guy that like you really wanted to get?" And he just was like, "Oh, everybody." And then Pete was like, "Yeah, but who?" And he was like, "Everyone." So I don't know. Papi's gonna answer how he wants to answer. That's just Papi.
I hope that you would say like Roger Clemens or something like that.
Yeah, that would have been cool. Maybe if we do it again, we'll get Pete to ask the same question and he can just ask it as many times until he actually answers it.
So final question for you. This is one thing that I like asking athletes too. If you were up at the plate like for like a World Series, like 3-2 count, like bases loaded, 2 outs, the whole bit. Which pitcher would you most not want to face?
Damn. That's a good question.
I was gonna say, would you most want to face, but like then you would pick somebody like in single A to like come up to like
Yeah.
or something, You could say anybody if pitch against you in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, I go back to Chris Sale coming out of the bullpen in 2018 in LA, and I'm like,
Ooh.
he's not a closer, but like a guy like that in a moment like that is like you just have no chance. And
Yeah.
obviously they didn't. But I might go with him. Kenley Jansen's looked unreal. I guess it depends what era it is, or I'm not sure the stipulations or the rules on this, but I'll go with Sale.
Yeah. You just made me think of like which era. You just made me think of Randy Johnson, kind of like similar like arm angle like Sale, but I agree. I think, for the people that are watching on YouTube, that would probably be like another K. That's kind of why I got this thing. That'll probably be another K on his belt tonight. But appreciate you coming on, Jake. And I mean, what a better game to do it after, and better vibes as well. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Happy to be a part of it.
And lastly, where can people find everything that you do and support everything that you do?
Yeah, so it's at Name Redacted Pod on Twitter, at Baseball is Dead on Twitter. Both under the DraftKings umbrella. Jared's obviously the host of both. Baseball is Dead is the national pod. Name Redacted is the Sox pod. So catch us on there.
I hope that you did enjoy my conversation with Jake Yasi and got a little bit of insight on what he does behind the camera during the Name Redacted podcast, sort of how he got to where he is in his journey, and also got a little bit more insight on all the different Red Sox topics that have been happening over the last week or so. But we're going to continue to keep these great episodes rolling as we have a very special guest on tomorrow in Lucy Burge. So we greatly appreciate everybody making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. So everydayers tomorrow, as I mentioned, Lucy Burge from BetQL is going to be on the podcast. We're not only going to talk about some of the best bets to do in regards to the Red Sox, but also she's going to give some of her thoughts on the most pressing topics surrounding the Boston Red Sox. But if you have not yet and you would like to, make sure to subscribe over on YouTube or our audio platform that you listen to this podcast on, because we post 5 days a week, keeping you posted about everything that's going on surrounding the team, while also bringing on great guests Like, for example, Jake. And also make sure to follow Locked On Red Sox over on Twitter. It's LO_Red Sox. Follow myself. It's at Jake Iggy. And also my co-host Lauren is La. 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But as always, we greatly appreciate everybody tuning in. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And we'll end it how we always end it. Keep the faith, stay positive, and let's go Sox. Peace.